time for the big story. I asked you, Don, about what might have caused what I perceive to be a surge in consumer confidence as outlined in your survey, but you were explaining that it's not so much of a surge at all. Go ahead with your explanation, please.
Yes, in the fourth quarter of 2024, the consumer confidence went up by 2 percentage points, and in the first quarter of 2025 by 5 percentage points. So it's a continuation of an upward movement. The fact that it jumped 5 percentage points is good. What is more important, perhaps, is that it then meant that the index was at the highest that it has been across the history of the survey, which, of course, is 20 years old, more than 20 years old. So, yes, in a sense it is, but I want to just make a correction because they weren't positing these positive changes on the basis of job expectations at all, except individual jobs. When I say individual jobs, it's what it represents is an increase in entrepreneurship, because when you look at the prospects for jobs, as indicated by the consumers, it moved only by 1 percentage point. And jobs have never been considered to be plentiful. So that in the fourth quarter of 2024, 16% felt that jobs were plentiful. In the first quarter of 2025, 17%. So there's a 1% change. What they're saying is that because of the pressure on the economy and on their own finances, they've had to now, a significant percentage of the population are now getting into more entrepreneurial activity, opening up of new small industries, etc. And that is what is actually comforting consumers and causing them to exude a greater degree of confidence at the moment. All right? Because when we ask them about job prospects, they aren't really overly more optimistic. Both job prospects and existing jobs really move by about 1 percentage point in either case. But they're saying that surely business conditions are good as far as they're concerned. But that is not what is in fact driving that consumer confidence. It is really their entrepreneurial spirit.
Okay.
So that's very good to know. It's very good to go. Whatever is driving it, consumer confidence has gone up.
I'm going to stick with consumer confidence before we go on to business confidence. As far as consumer confidence is concerned, do you expect this trend that you're picking up to continue for a while, and how will it impact the overall economy in the coming quarters?
Well, the fact of the matter is that we like to look at about 3 or 4 consistent sort of movements. If, for example, over the last 4 quarters, we saw an upward tick in terms of consumer confidence, then we would be more comfortable in predicting that this would continue. But, the consumer confidence, as the business confidence, has gone up and down over the last couple of quarters. I think it's a good pattern that they're setting with 2 consecutive quarters of positives, and therefore one hopes that it continues, because you really want consumers to be comfortable and confident about their own situation. All right. So it's difficult. It's a little early for me to say this is likely to continue or to predict that it is likely to continue. But it is a positive path.
How did tourism show up in this consumer confidence survey?
Sorry, could you repeat that?
Tourism. How did it show up in the survey?
Well, the fact of the matter is that when you look at the data, we've analyzed the data by tourism areas, by Kingston, and by other areas. And where the hope is and where the expectation and the confidence is in the tourism sector. Because they've seen movements taking place. And generally, when you ask them about what sector you think is really driving this kind of driving consumer confidence, it is the tourism sector, because they see construction taking place, and there's a talk about new jobs in the tourism sector. And this is really what is driving it. Less so in Kingston, and certainly much less so in other areas. So it's not spread across the island necessarily, but primarily so in the tourist sectors.
For the benefit of our listeners, Don, I'll ask you to just explain the difference really between consumer confidence and business confidence, and tell us what the survey picked up in terms of business confidence in Jamaica. All
right. So we interview 600 plus persons in the consumer segment, and we interview just over 100 persons. Our target is 100, and we oversample by 10 percentage points. So we get anywhere between 100 and 130 interviews in the business segment. When we looked at the fourth quarter of 2024, there was a surge in business confidence by 12 percentage points, which was in a way an outlier, because over the last 3 or 4 quarters of representing and reflecting on this business confidence, it had moved marginally, and in fact was a little bit down in the third quarter of 2024. It moved up 12 percentage points in the fourth quarter of 2024, and this was a bit of a shock to several people. But that was explained by the optimism in the last quarter, with Christmas taking place, with lots of business promises, changes in the economy, etc. And businesses were pretty buoyant in the third quarter. But we sort of cautioned because we knew that a lot of that boost was because of the expectation of the Christmas bumper, and that consumers would have the money to spend. When we look at the first quarter of 2025, what happened was that business confidence fell back to its pre-fourth quarter numbers, and therefore it is leveled off. It is not much less than it was in the third quarter of 2024, and more or less in line with the other quarters in 2024, except for the fourth quarter. So the fourth quarter really was a kind of an outlier in terms of the pattern over the last year or so.
Yes.
So that leveled off. And when you look at all the various individual indices, profit expectation, business climate, profitability going forward vis-a-vis what they saw in the last quarter, businesses are down by a couple of percentage points in each case. So each of the individual indices that contribute towards the overall business index fell. But, you have to put that in context, because let us look, for example, at the business climate. Is it a good time to invest? That fell by about 12 percentage points. But one needs to note that still the majority of business firms thought it was a good time to invest. So the fall really means the less positive rather than a negative necessarily, if you look at it from that perspective. All right. It fell by about 10 percentage points between the fourth quarter and the first quarter of 2025. But when you look at the overall number, still the majority of firms believe it's a good time to invest, but that number fell over the last quarter.
Okay.
So again, everything has to be contextualized. You don't want to just say, boy, business confidence fell by 11 percentage points and take away doom and gloom. Yes. Because that's not the case.
I really want to bring a part of the equation to the fore, and that is the whole matter of the global economic trends. I mean, we're hearing a lot about trade wars and so on. Is Jamaica likely to be impacted, the business confidence here, by what's happening in the global space?
Most definitely. When we asked those persons who felt that the economy was going to be worse off this year, which is the lesser of the two numbers, we need to make the point again, that when we asked those persons, those businesses who said that business confidence, the economy was going to be not as good as it was last year, why do you say so? 2 of the 5 primary reasons that they advanced had to do with, 1, the global crisis, the trade wars which are taking place or about to take place, and secondly, the election in the United States. They specifically mentioned these 2. And I think we can't ignore the fact that they are beginning to anticipate some serious problems going forward, based on what's happening in the global market. Of course, we are a recipient of whatever takes place everywhere else. It impacts us, depending on the severity of it. But surely they anticipate that there are going to be some challenges going forward.
Do you anticipate that the results of this survey that we are discussing will sort of influence any political decision? Maybe even the calling of election might be brought forward because of the results of this survey, or not?
I think there are a number of factors. It could, but the bottom line is I think they tend to look more at the numbers when the polls come out and see where the respective positions are. I think clearly, the fact that that consumer confidence is up would give some comfort to the government. But I doubt that they would want to call an election on the basis of the findings from the business and consumer study, because the political polls are another element, another measuring rod. And I think they would want to look at that before they make any decision about when the election should be held.
I wouldn't be surprised if I hear the results of this survey being trumpeted on platforms, especially in the...
I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, I gather the 12 percentage point movement of the business confidence in the fourth quarter is a talking point on platforms, which is good.
Yes,
You know,
it is indeed.
I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah.
All right. Don, we learned a lot, and we thank you again for your thoughts and your time. Have a good day.
As always, Richard.